Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, we are going to continue our backend series and continue our implementation for the JWT security. Right now, in the last one, we have already completed the core services implementation for access and refresh token. Here in this video, the remaining portion is to complete um, to build the configuration and to build the controllers and test our APIs, okay, whether all things are working as expected or not. Also, this method which we had not implemented in the last video, so this is an extra addition that you can do. You need to pass a list of authorities or list of permissions a user has. So we have defined those permissions in the user role, whether a user is simply a user, a normal user, or an admin. Okay, so this you need to pass so that Spring Security can identify the permissions. We will implement the permissions soon, but yeah, this is the way how to do it. Second thing is, if you go to user repository, we have changed the method to find by email. Okay, the reason for this is that we have two fields for authentication, username and email. So if you want to continue with username, you can keep this method, and elsewhere you have to change from email to use username wherever it is used. So here in get username, you can change it to username. Okay, if you want to authenticate using username. If you want to authenticate using email, then you need to change it to by email so that the JPA can fire a query for us to search the given email. Okay, and if you don't want to change the method, then you have to write your own SQL query. That's what not we are going to do here for now. So we have just write a method, a custom method by ourselves, which can be identified by the JPA to write the query itself. Okay, so this is one change, and these changes will be reflected here in the JWT service. And yeah, here find by email, this is one place where you need to change. Wherever that method is used, you have to change that thing also, right? So just make changes there. Now we have, for testing our purposes today, since we are going to test our API, so I have kept the validity of refresh token to 30 seconds, and JWT token validity is 25 seconds after the creation. Okay, so that we can test it quickly. Okay, but yeah, in the real life scenarios, it is it is in hours. Okay, so that you can do it, and refresh token can be like few days or something like that. Okay, so it's all depends on what kind of application it is, right? So these are the changes that have been made. Rest all are same. So, and one more thing, in the auth filter service, just put at not non-null annotation here in front of all these three parameters. And the reason for that is, when the filter is trying to do all these things, the request, response, and filter change, all these things should be non-null. Okay, for that purpose we have put non-null, and this comes from org.springframework.lang. Okay, so these are some of the changes that we have done. Yeah, and in application config also there is a find by email we have changed, so it's same. Now we are going to proceed ahead with the security configuration that is remaining. So let's create another class, security configuration. Okay, and we annotate this class with add configuration. Also, we will annotate it with required args constructor, because we will need some constructor, and enable web security. Right, so now we have to use certain already that we have implemented the classes, so we have to use those. The first thing we will use is So we will be using auth filter service, and second thing will be to use final authentication provider. For both of them, the constructor will be there, so no need to explicitly provide a constructor. Now we will define a bean of public security filter chain. Okay, so this is an important method which will be useful for us, and it will take a parameter of Spring's HTTP security, since we are following the HTTP protocol. So HTTP, it can throw an exception. Okay, now we need to define which paths are to be secured and which are not to be secured. So when we say not secured, then the paths can be, if we have to build a controller for login and registration of user, login of user, or to get a refresh token, then those paths do not need to be secured, because users should be able to access those without providing any token or anything, right? So all these things we need to configure. So http dot csrf. Now there is a one thing known as, we have to disable this configurer. Okay, and we can use a disable. So this method, this class has a method known as disable, which is used to disable the CSRF, cross-site forgery. Okay, cross-site request forgery. And then we are going to say authorize HTTP requests. Here we will provide a lambda. It takes a lambda, and we can say auth dot. Now we have to provide request matchers. That so we will first say that API /v1/auth. This will be a base URL for our authentication thing. Okay, and we would like to permit all these, so we'll say permit all. Okay, else any request has to be authenticated. All the base URL which contains this one, and also we should specify like the ***. So this means that any request which is starting with this URL should be allowed for everyone, and any other URL which is not similar to this pattern should be authenticated. Okay, so there the JWT security will come into the picture. Now after this, we'll say, since it is a stateless protocol, the JWT, so we will say session, just a minute, session will pass a lambda, session dot session creation policy, and it is stateless. Okay, so this will be stateless. So we have managed our session, we have managed our HTTP request, in which requests are permitted and which needs to be authenticated. Second is, what will be the session? So we are not going to use session, that's why we have put session management policy as stateless. Next is to write a authentication provider. So authentication provider, so this already we have defined bean for it in the application config also, and we have defined that DAO authentication provider is there, right? And then finally we have to add filter. Now we have to add filter before that, so we will say JWT filter, or maybe that is auth filter service, and we will be using username password authentication filter dot class. Okay, and simply return http dot build. That's it. So that much defines our security configuration. So to apply filter every time we are to authenticate, we are using this, right? Now add filter before will work before this authentication provider and all. So if there is no token, then you have to re-authenticate, or token is expired, you have to re-authenticate. Else, if you are already authenticated, then you have to provide token, and this filter will allow you to access resources. Okay, so this is done. Now we will create another package which is known as utils. Now this package, we are creating utils for three purpose. First is when we are registering, what request body it will have. When we are logging in, what request body it will have. And when we are want a refresh token, when we have our valid refresh token and we want a valid access token again, then and our access token is expired, we want again. So what request body it should have. Okay, so all these things will be required. So first is register request. Now in register request, we will have private string name, private string email, private string username, and private string password. Okay, so these are the things required. We will use Lombok further now. So data, then all args constructor, no arg constructor, and we will use a builder to build our user object. Now in the similar way, we will create a login request. Okay, so this login request will have, third one is refresh token request. So refresh token request. So this request body will be used when we want to get a new JWT token. So in that, we simply have to provide our valid refresh token. That's it. Okay, and it will give us everything. This will simply have a data. Okay, that much is required. And finally, since we also want a auth response, so for all these requests we want a response. So response will have two things: private string token, which will be a access token, you can say. Let's write access token only. Access token and private string a refresh token. So these two will be the thing. And let's copy this whole thing from here. So this is the four things that is required for how our request body should be and how our response should be. Now we are ready to build our own controllers. So let's go to controller and let's here only build our controller. So we'll say auth controller. Let's mark it as REST controller, and then we will give a base URL. So API/v1/auth. So we have given because in the, if you see here, we have already given this thing. The base URL is API/v1/auth. So therefore we are giving the base URL here also the same. Now we need to create methods for register, login, and that generation of valid access token by refresh token. Okay, so first thing will be public response entity. It will return an auth response. It will be to register. Now it will contain request body, and it will have register request. Okay, and we'll simply return. Okay, so we need some service which can process the register request and which can work on the register request, right? Which can actually register the user. So here in the services tab, let's go here and create a new class known as auth service. Okay, mark it as service. Now we will need few things like first method will be auth response, and then we will register. So it will take a object of register request, and we need to build our user. So we'll use a var keyword here, var user equal to user dot. Okay, we need a builder class also. Let's go here, let's put a builder annotation that we can build it easily. Builder dot name, register request the dot get name dot email dot get email, then username, username, so register request dot get username, then it will be password. Now for password we have to use a password encoder. So whenever a user is sending its details, and in that detail there will be password, so we don't have to store the password in the raw format, so we have to encode it. So we'll need a bin of password encoder here. So we will just pass password encoder dot encode register request dot get password. Okay, it will encode the password. Then we need to pass the role, so it will be user role dot user. So by default, whichever users are created, it will be of the role of type user. Okay, and then we will simply build. So now we need to save this user, so we need a user repository. So let's put private final user repository. So user repository dot save user, saved user. Okay, now we have created our user details. Now from it we will generate the JWT token. Okay, so we'll say var JWT equal to, or maybe we can say just access token. Okay, it will be a better word. Access token equal to, we need a JWT service, so we need to inject that also. Private final JWT service. So JWT service dot generate token, we have to pass the user. Okay, we will here pass saved user. Okay, and we need a var refresh token. So refresh token will have its own service, so we need to inject that also. Private final refresh token service. So refresh token service dot create refresh token using saved user dot get email. Okay, and finally we need to return the response, so it will be auth response dot builder. First is access token, will have access token in it, then it is having refresh token field which will have a refresh token field in it, or maybe refresh token dot get refresh token, and build the field, right? So these things are actually quite simple. Okay, we are just using builders to build our object for user builder, and getting the saving the user because we are registering the user for the first time, and then getting access token via JWT service, refresh token via refresh token service, and then we are building the auth response object again. Second is auth response. It will be to login. Okay, so for login we need login request. Now in the login request, we will require, for authentication, we require an authentication manager. Okay, so we will get private final authentication manager. So authentication manager being here, and we will say authentication manager dot authenticate. So first thing will be to username password authentication token. So we will say login request dot get email, login request dot get password. So this method will authenticate the user. Okay, and it will return an authenticated object, which is not of use here because all things we have already done here. I'll tell you, in the authentication services we have done, we are checking here also, and in the security configuration we have already provided the authentication provider, right? So we just want to ensure the use of authentication manager is just to authenticate whether the request is right or not. And simply then we have to, once the user gets authenticated that okay, the credentials are right, then we need to generate access token again, which can be generated using JWT service dot generate token. For it we require a user detail, means user object. So for that we will use user, or user equal to user repository dot find by email. We'll pass login request dot get email. This returns us a user. It will return a optional, so we'll say or else throw, and we'll throw a username not found exception. So username not found exception. For now I'm just trying user not found. That much will be fine for here. Okay, the messages we can customize later. So we will just pass a user object, and then we need a refresh token. So refresh token equal to refresh token service dot create refresh token. We have to pass login request dot get email, and simply we have to return again the same auth response. So just copy and paste it. All right, so this is how our auth service works. Now in the auth controller we will need a dependency of auth service. So final auth service, add constructor parameter, and here we will return response entity dot ok auth service dot register request simply, and this will be of type post mapping. So register the user. In the same way will be the login also, right? So here we will just make it login, here login request, and we will call a login here. We will pass the login request object. So login completed, right? Now next is public response entity auth response. We need a access token from a valid refresh token. Okay, so what we are providing here is request body, and we are providing refresh token request and refresh token request. Now first thing is that we have to verify that the refresh token that we are getting in the body is valid. Okay, so we will use refresh token service for it. So let's inject that also. Private final refresh token service constructor injection. So first I will say refresh token service dot verify. verify our refresh token request dot get refresh token. Okay, first it will verify this and it will return an object, and then if the refresh token is valid, then we need to get the user. So to get the user, we can simply say refresh token dot get user. Let's extract the variable so that much is done, and simply then we will pass refresh token equal to this dot. We need to generate another access token now. Now we have verified that the refresh token is perfect. Then we will get the user details from the refresh token, right? And then we need to generate an access token. Here we will say we need to generate access token now. So for this we need to use the JWT service, private final JWT service. Okay, so simply we will say JWT service dot generate token and we'll pass the user object. So it will give us the token. Now we can return response entity dot OK, auth response dot builder. In the access token, we will pass our access token, and in the refresh token, we will pass our valid refresh token. Okay, so refresh token dot get refresh token, and then we will just build it. So this is the way that we are going to respond, and the endpoint for it will be also be a post mapping. Endpoint name will be refresh. So all these things are done. Now here, if you come to security configuration, then we have said enable web security, but for authorization purpose, we will enable method security. Now enable method security will give us some of the kind of flexibility. What? Let's see. Here in the movie ID, when we are getting the movie ID, then it's fine. Anyone who is authenticated can get the movie ID. Okay, let's assume for now. But when we are trying to add a movie, then only admin should be able to add. So this is the functionality that we want. So what we will do is we will say pre-authorize, and here we will say inverted commas. We will have to write has authority. Now IntelliJ community is not identifying, but this is how the syntax of the pre-authorize is. So what it means that it will check whether the authenticated user has the role admin in the list of its role, because in the user class we have just defined our role and we have returned a collection of the roles. Okay, whatever roles a user has, whether it can be user, admin, multiple roles, it can have single role, it can have. So we have defined that. So it will check in the list what kind of permissions that does the user have, whether admin permission or user permission. According to that, this method will be allowed to execute or not. So if a user does not have a role of admin, then this method will, even if we send the request, the movie will not be saved, file will not be uploaded. Okay, so we will test this out. Okay, so this is one example where we have put pre-authorize and for our testing purpose. Okay, so we'll do that. So now everything is in place, all seems to be good now. So let's test our service. Okay, so just run the application and let's test if everything is working according to how we want it to be. So I hope no errors are there. Yeah, all the new tables are created for user, refresh token, right? Okay, perfect. So if we go here, the movies we have to see. So users and refresh token, two tables are created here. So currently no one is there, right? Okay, let's test in our postman. Okay, so let's go to post. First we need a user, so we have to register a user. So Now to register a user, if you see, if you go to register request, okay, register request, we need email, name, email, username, and password. Okay, so we'll provide these 4 fields. Name, for now providing my name, then email, so some random email at gmail.com. Then we need username. Let something provide like abcpqr. Okay, and for password we'll provide 1235. Okay, and we can see that API slash v1 slash auth slash register. So let's see that this controller is fine. Okay, so API slash v1 slash auth slash register. Perfect. Let's fire this. So as you can see, our user is created and it has given us a access token and refresh token. That's perfect. And if we go here, we can see that we have got all the fields. And if we check for this field password, that we can see we have entered there 12345, but here there is some encoded password. So what we wanted is perfect. In the role we are the user currently. Okay, let's register one more user. This time I will name it as admin. Okay, and admin, and let's register. So this is also done. The user is registered. So I will just make it manually as admin. You can create an endpoint which will be accessible to the admin only to make other admin user. Okay, so I'm just making this. So just apply here and finish. Perfect. So that we can test with both users, right? That's our purpose. Next, what we have to do is we have to check whether we are able to authenticate or not. So I've created a URL here. So let's test first. Sudarshan at gmail.com and password 12345. And also there is one endpoint which is here is movie slash all. Okay. Endpoint for R was what? Let's first see. Let's go to movie controller. Okay, it is API slash v1 slash movie. Okay, so API slash v1 slash movie, right? API slash v1 slash movie. Okay, perfect. And in the headers we have to provide the bearer and the token. Okay, so we will provide our own token here whenever we authenticate. So let's authenticate first. So first we authenticate. Oh, sorry. Here it will be login. I've written authenticate. Okay, that the URL was invalid. Okay. Okay, so let's send it. Okay, so we are not able to log in. Let's see what's the problem. Let's try again. Okay, we are not getting the nothing here. Query is firing up, but we are not getting it. Okay, let us see what is this. Sometimes is not working correctly. Let's remove it. Don't save. Let's create another request. Slash login post body raw email sudarshan at gmail.com, and here we will say password 12345. Okay, I hope it should work now. No, it's not working. Something is wrong that we have done. Let's figure it out. The problem that we were facing why we were not able to log in was here in the one thing I forgot that we created 4 extra fields. Okay, for this is non account non-expired, is account non-logged, credentials, and enabled, right? So here only we have to just mention that we have to return true from here, and we don't need to create a new fields over in the database because Spring Security by default take care of it. and that was creating a problem in authentication, because it was the flow was not going in a proper way, and it for enable the user, or it is the value is 1, and for disabling a user the value is 0. So by default 0 as a value was getting stored in the DB. Okay, so there are of course the workarounds and the behind the things that we can do, but the thing is Spring Security is taking care of it, so we don't need to exclusively define those things. Okay, so after doing all those things we are able to, you can see, authenticate. If we click again here, we are getting a new JWT, and now we can copy paste because only 25 seconds are there. So let's copy paste here JWT bearer. In the authorization, select JWT bearer. Okay, so now if we send it, see, we are getting all the movies list here, right? Perfect. Now I want to show you that register is working. This is also working. Now here refresh token thing is there. Okay, now I hope so. If refresh token is not, if we pass this refresh token here and we send, then we are not getting, because here you can see we have got an error because our refresh token expired. Right? So let's authenticate again first, because now refresh token is expired, then there is no option but to authenticate. So send. So we have got another new refresh token. So let's copy it, and our JWT token or access token ends with QWBE. Okay, this one. But now we will get a new access token. So we'll copy paste this refresh token here, send it, and we are getting another access token here, new access token from the refresh token. So this functionality is working, right? We have tested it out of it. And final thing that we want to test it is to this API / movie / add movie. Okay, so this is the one that we want to test it out. Okay, as we have made changes to movie controller that has authority admin. For the movie to get, we need a body, we need post, we need raw, and in the body we need to pass certain details. So we already have our details here. Okay, so we, for the movie purpose, we are going to take this example. So let's copy this movie data here, and we are going to add this movie into a database. So let's see if we can add using a user credentials. So first we will, okay, we have to use form data. Okay, so and the values will be file and movie DTO. Okay, so values name will be file and movie DTO. In here movie DTO, we will just paste it. In that file we have our own file, so here is the animal.png. We'll upload it. Now if we simply try to send this, then it will say forbidden because unauthenticated users don't have it. So first we have to authenticate ourselves and pass the authorization. So JWT bearer, in the header we will pass our authorization header, and here we will have a bearer. From login we will log in using user credential. So here you can see we have two users. Currently both have a role as user, so I will make this as admin. Now if you see, and if I refresh again, now the first admin@gmail.com has admin role use, and sodarshan@gmail.com has user role. So let's first authenticate using the user role. So I'm authenticating using user role. I've got a access token. We'll use the access token quickly before it expires. And if I try to pass here, see, I am getting forbidden. Here also something is getting, okay, here I'm not getting anything, but it's not allowing, right? But now I will try to log in as admin. Okay, so I will try to log in as admin, and if I send, I get a refresh token. I'm able to successfully authenticate myself. Now, if I pass the JWT token here, and if I send the data, you can see I have got the response because I'm able to put the data. Why? As an admin, because I have put pre-authorize has authority as admin. So it is first checking whether the user has a role of admin or not, and then only deciding whether to allow it or not allow it. Right? So I hope we have tested all the methods. We have completed the JWT authentication. Few things I would like you to do on your part. So this will give a confidence in you only. And those things are like in the JWT services or maybe in the token services. Okay. If I come here, we have thrown runtime exceptions here. So create a custom exception, and in the exception handler, this global exception handler, write the methods for it. Okay. So this is a small task for you to do and to gain confidence that you are able to do it. And you can test these refresh token and access token on yourself. And in case you find any discrepancy, you can put in the comment, or if anything is not clear, you can write down in comment also. Okay. You are new to the channel, please subscribe it to it for more such amazing content. The series is not yet over. We have completed all the things that I have told, but there are more to go. So in the upcoming videos, you will get to know what other things are remaining, right? But these were the all important and fundamental things that we have completed. So now you can build any complex backend with all the proper things, okay? But of course, there are a lot of things in backend which we will integrate here. But fundamental portion of backend development or building backend is done, right? So I hope you like the content. Please press the like button for sure, and share with other like-minded people also. That's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, bye bye.